let the battle of the bands begin.
Hi, my name is Jake, and I
am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I'm very excited to announce the launch of a readathon that will be taking place exclusively on the Bookish Drummer Discord in the month of April. This readathon was created by me and my girlfriend, Stacy, and it is called Battle of the Bands. So the Battle of the Bands readathon will be taking place all month long in the month of April, and it is a competitive points-based readathon. So you will choose your team and you will read books to try to gain points for your team or take points away from your opponent's teams. It has a very similar setup to the one that we did last year, the Stephen King readathon. So if you participated in that, you'll kind of get the gist of what we're going for. But in this video, I will definitely explain all the different rules and the prompts, and you'll get a more clear understanding of how the readathon works. But before I jump into the rules and the prompts and everything you need to know for the readathon, it will take place exclusively on my Discord server, the Bookish Drummer Discord. So if you're interested in joining the readathon, then hit the link down below in the description box, come join the server, and you can choose your team, and yeah, we can get started. So let's first talk about the teams for Battle of the Bands. Now this is the very fun part because there are 4 teams for the Battle of the Bands readathon, and there are 4 captains, or one captain for each team, obviously. And the first team is the Beatles, and the captain for the Beatles is Kate from The Almost Book Doctor. The second team is Led Zeppelin, and the captain is, of course, moi. I love Led Zeppelin. The third team is Team Queen, and the captain for Team Queen is Ian from Ian the Reader. And the fourth and final team is Team AC/DC, and the captain for Team AC/DC is Nico from the channel Nico's Book Reviews. And of course, if you aren't already subscribed to these awesome creators, go check out their channels because they're all awesome people. And like I said before, in order to participate in the readathon, you have to be a member on the Bookish Drummer Discord. So if you're not already, go sign up for that. And once you get there, you can go to the readathon page and you can choose your team. And for choosing your team, there's going to be 2 polls. The first poll is going to be what your first choice is. So say your first choice is Team Zeppelin, hint, hint, you would hit that for the first poll. And if we can't give you that for your first option, we have a second poll for if you can't have your first option, what would your second option be? And the reason for this is because we want to try our best to have even teams. We want to have even teams because we're not going to be averaging scores at the end of the readathon. No, we're going to be just whoever has the most points, that team wins. So of course we don't want to have a team that has 30 members going up against a team that has 10 members. That's no fun. So we're going to try our best to even the playing field and have an even number of players on each team. So if we can't give you your first option, we will try our best to give you the second option. You also have the option of not having a preference. So if you just want to be on any team, like you don't have any preference, you can pick that and that will help us a lot too. So go do that to go choose your team. Okay, so now that we've talked about how to choose your team and which teams there are and who the team captains are, let's talk about some of the rules for the readathon and how to participate, what books you can read, and how to gain points and to take away points from the teams. Like I said, this will be a very competitive readathon, and right up front, we do encourage friendly competition. However, we discourage meanness and just being flat out rude to people. So basically the first rule is don't be a dick. We are doing this for the fun of reading. We don't want anybody to be discouraged, not to read, and to feel bad. So don't be a dick, and we want everybody to have fun with this. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump into how to participate. So each team is going to have 5 total book prompts, which means that there are a total of 20 book prompts you can complete for the readathon. So basically you have 2 options that can help out your team. One option is to read books for your team's prompts and gain points for your team. The other option is to read books for other teams' prompts and they lose points. So there's a lot of strategy that's going to go on in this readathon. And for anyone who's wondering, you don't have to read only your team's prompts first. You can read any prompts in any order that you want to. So you don't have to stick with yours first and then move on to the other team's prompts. You can do it in literally any order you desire. And the point system is if you read a book for your team's prompts, that's plus 30 points. And if you read another book for another team's prompts, that's minus 10 points. So I'm going to give an example here. Say you're on team The Beatles and you read a prompt for The Beatles. Your team gains 30 points. And then let's say you read a book for Team Led Zeppelin's prompts. Team Led Zeppelin loses 10 points. So whatever team prompt you read for, that team loses points. So for example, you can't read a prompt for Team AC/DC and then decide to make Led Zeppelin lose points. For whatever other team that you're not on that you read a prompt for, that specific team loses points. So if you're on the Beatles and you read a prompt for the Beatles, your team gains points. If you read one for Led Zeppelin loses points. If you read one for Team Queen, Queen loses points. And then if you read one for AC/DC, AC/DC loses points. So hopefully that makes sense. Another essential rule is that there's no doubling up. So there's only 1 book per prompt and 1 prompt per book. So you can't read 2 books for a prompt, and you can't have a book count for multiple prompts. The only possible way to get all the points is to read 20 books for the 20 prompts. Another rule is that your book that you're reading for the readathon has to be at least 150 pages. And now this can be a book or a novella or a collection of short stories. The only thing we're not really allowing is like manga and comic books. But as long as your book is at least 150 pages, you can count it. Now, if you're reading an ebook or you're doing an audiobook, the main way you would look up how many pages it is either like look up the Kindle edition or look up the paperback copy on Amazon or Goodreads. And as long as it's over 150 pages, you can count it. But just remember, no graphic novels, no manga, no comic books, just basically no picture books at all. And we'll talk more about the prompts when we get to them in kind of the second half of this video. But essentially, we're not going to be really policing anybody about their interpretation of the prompt. If you have a book and you honestly think that it fits for the prompt, you can go ahead and count it. I know we get a lot of comments of like, oh, does this book count for the prompt? Does this book count? If you think it does, then just go with it. Also, if you go over on the Bookish Drummer Discord, Stacy put together a FAQ, a frequently asked questions section. I'm going to go over a few of them. I'm not going to go over them extensively in this video, but if you do have a question about the readathon, you can always ask me or Stacy or any of the captains, but chances are we would have answered your questions in the FAQ. So please go check that out if you have any questions. And if it's not there, you can come to us to ask it. One question that we sometimes get is, does page count matter? As in, like, if I read a longer book, is it going to benefit me more? No, the only thing we're keeping track of is if the book is at least 150 pages. So actually, it benefits you to read a bunch of shorter books. It doesn't benefit you to read like 1,000-page tomes. You can always read those if you want to, but if you want to try and get to all 20 prompts, it doesn't benefit you to read longer books. Another question we sometimes get is if you can read nonfiction for the readathon, and you totally can, as long as it fits one of the prompts. We sometimes get questions about short story collections and novellas as well. Essentially, if you have a short story collection and one of the short stories in the collection counts for a prompt, you can totally count that, but you have to read the whole collection. You can't just read that one short story and count it. So say if you read like a Ray Bradbury short story collection and one of those stories fits for the prompt, you can do that, but you have to read the entire collection. It can't just be that one short story. However, we are changing it though. If you have a novella in a novella collection or any kind of collection, and it does count, you can read just that novella if that novella is at least 150 pages. But if it's shorter than that, you would have to read the entire thing. Another thing that I want to talk about with this readathon that we want to discourage is people reading a bunch of books and submitting points right at the end of the readathon. That's not really in the competitive spirit of the readathon because we will be doing weekly updates, scoreboard updates. So we want to try to encourage everybody to do that every week so we can get a realistic portrayal of where everybody is at in the readathon. So we don't want people to just submit at the very end and be like all sneaky about it. No, that's a dick move. Don't do that. If you read 3 books in week 1, we try to get all of those submitted before the week 1 scoreboard update. Now, if you honestly haven't read anything in week 1, don't feel pressure to do it, obviously, because you haven't read anything. But also don't wait till the very end to submit everything. That's a dick move, and we discourage that. Another fun thing about this readathon is that there's going to be random bonus challenges throughout the readathon. There's going to be at least 2, maybe 3, but they're not going to be book related. They're going to be somewhat music related. We're not going to tell you what they are yet, but when they pop up, you can choose to do them if you feel the need to do so. You certainly don't have to, but like I said, they are bonus prompts, so you do get extra points for your team if you do them. So those are going to be a lot of fun, so be on the lookout for those. One last thing before I jump into the prompts, all of the information that I'm going through and more is all readily available on the Bookstrummer Discord. And like I said, Stacy and I came up with the readathon, but she is the MVP because she really put all of this together. She created all of the graphics for the readathon, and she really helped me out with everything. So big round of applause for Stacy because she did a fantastic job, and everything that you need for the readathon is on the Discord. So go check that out if you have any more questions. There will also be a Google Doc in the description box below with all of the readily available information pertaining to the readathon. All right, now let's get to everybody's favorite part, looking at the prompts for all of the teams. And I definitely wanted to release this like almost a month in advance so everybody can decide what team they want to be on and what books they want to choose for their April TBR. So this is your chance. Editing Jake here. I also forgot to mention that the prompts for all of the teams are of course based on the song titles for all of the bands. So we're going to look at the Beatles prompts, and there should be on the big screen here. So prompt number 1 is Hey Jude, which is a book with a male character name in the book or series title. Now this should be pretty self-explanatory. A good example, the perfect example is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. That's in the book title and it's in the series title. So either one of those is good. So yeah, that should be pretty self-explanatory. Prompt number 2 is Come Together, a book featuring a group of friends working together. Again, pretty self-explanatory. You get this trope a lot in fantasy, but you can find this trope in other genres as well, such as horror or thrillers, but really pretty self-explanatory. In prompt number 3, Yesterday, a book featuring a character's written account of their own story. Now, this doesn't just mean that it's written in first person, but it also means that it's literally a character writing out their story, like they're reliving it through writing it out. So some examples of this are Fred the Vampire Accountant. It's actually his account of what he's been through. Also, Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio. The main character is recounting his life story. And then you've also got the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, where you have Fitz recounting his childhood and his upbringing. So you've got some clear examples there to work with. Prompt number 4 is Help, which is the poll pick. Now for this one, there will be a polls channel on the Readathon page where essentially you go post a poll of books that you would want to read during the readathon, and people in the Discord can vote for the books. And essentially, whatever wins your poll, you would have to read for that prompt. And prompt number 5 is Magical Mystery Tour, a fantasy book with a mystery element. And again, pretty self-explanatory. A clear example would be the Dresden Files, where you've got a bunch of fantasy stuff happening, but he's also a private investigator, so there's usually a mystery element to it. All right, now we're going to Team Led Zeppelin, the best team, and their prompts are here. So prompt number 6 is Stairway to Heaven, a book with stairs on the cover or in the title. Now this one might be a bit tricky, but I promise you there are books with stairs either in the title or on the cover. For example, you have City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett, and then there's tons of like mystery and thriller books that just randomly have stairs on the cover, so you might have to do a bit of digging, but they are out there. Number 7 is Immigrant Song, a book by an author who immigrated to another country or whose parents did. So you definitely have some examples here, especially in Asian fantasy. So like examples would be Fonda Lee or R.F. Kuang. So that's pretty self-explanatory too. Basically, if an author or their parents immigrated to another country. And for prompt number 8, Dazed and Confused, a book featuring the amnesia trope. Now, this is most likely to occur probably in mystery or thriller type books, but it does also happen in fantasy and sci-fi. You have examples like The Bone Shard Daughter for fantasy and Project Hail Mary for sci-fi, both involving the amnesia trope. Prompt number 9, you have Over the Hills and Far Away, a book with an older protagonist. Now, for this one, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek because Over the Hills usually refers to someone who's over the age of 40, but we're allowing loose interpretation for these prompts. But if you think that a protagonist is a bit on the older side, now whether that means they're elderly or maybe they're just older than like a typical protagonist would be, we'll let you decide. And prompt number 10 is Trampled Underfoot, a lesser-known book by a popular author. So for this one, we want to try to get you to read books by authors that aren't as popular as maybe their magnum opus or just their popular stuff. So examples would be like older books by George R.R. Martin that aren't A Song of Ice and Fire, such as maybe Fever Dream or Windhaven, or even stuff by, maybe Brandon Sanderson. Like obviously his Cosmere stuff is super popular, but then he has other books like The Arithmetist or Alcatraz and the Evil Librarians that aren't nearly as popular. And then we have the prompts for Team Queen. And prompt number 11 is We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, a book with an already accomplished or successful character. Now, this basically means, like at the start of the book, if you have a character who's already well-to-do, already successful, they're well off, such as maybe like a king or a queen, or like a millionaire or billionaire, like they're already established and they're successful. Prompt number 12 is Bohemian Rhapsody, a book about a character who refuses to conform to their society. Now, of course, this could apply to many different genres. It's very popular in fantasy to have, someone like start a revolution, or even, sometimes in thrillers, you have teenage angst and they don't want to like conform to their family's values or something. You can go a lot of different directions with this prompt. And prompt number 13, Another One Bites the Dust, a book featuring a serial killer or multiple deaths. Now, for this one, pretty self-explanatory. If a book, has a serial killer, like it has a serial killer, or if you're a bit afraid of the horror side of things and a book definitely has multiple deaths of people, you can go for it. Pretty self-explanatory. Prompt number 14 is Under Pressure, a book that you've been pressured to read. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory, and it's basically just on your part. Like, if someone has been pressuring you to read a book, or you feel pressure like, oh, so many people are reading this book, I gotta get to it, you would do that for that prompt. And number 15, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, a book by an author that you love. Very self-explanatory. You have an author that you love and you have a book that you haven't read by them, do that. And finally, we come to Team AC/DC's prompts. And for number 16, we have Highway to Hell, a book featuring a villain's POV, a villain's point of view. So if you have a book where you know the villain does get POV chapters, which usually does occur in fantasy sometimes, you can definitely count that. Or sometimes if you read a horror book, you can get like the perspective of like them trying to kill people. You know, it doesn't matter what genre you do as long as you get the villain's POV. And prompt number 17 is Back in Black, a sequel or reprinted edition with a mostly black cover. Now for this one, like the prompt suggests, you can either go with a sequel to a series that comes out and the cover is mostly black, or you can do a reprinted edition of a book with a mostly black cover. So some examples would be the sequel to Black Sun, which I believe is called Fevered Star. That's a sequel with a mostly black cover. And then there's also, you know, a lot of books get reprinted editions and sometimes they go all black. So if you happen to have one of those, you can count those as well. I can't think of any at the top of my head, but they're readily available. And prompt number 18 is Thunderstruck, a book featuring an unlucky character. Basically, if your book has a character that's just down on their luck and they're just, you know, at the beginning of the book, they're just in a really bad situation or just something very unlucky happens to them, you know, very self-explanatory, I think. And number 19 is TNT, a book featuring a character with magical fire abilities. Now, of course, this is more fantasy leaning, so if you have like a wizard or some kind of mage who has magical fire abilities, you can definitely count that. And the last prompt, number 20, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, a book involving bribery or blackmail. Now, of course, you can find this in a lot of thrillers where there's blackmail, but all of these prompts can be used for different genres. So if you find something, you know, in fantasy or sci-fi or horror, you can definitely count it. But if it involves bribery or blackmail, you can definitely count it. So those are all 20 prompts for the 4 teams. So each team has 5 prompts, and whatever team you choose, you can do one of 2 things. You can read prompts for your team and gain points for your team, and you can read prompts for the opponent's teams and make them lose points. So we did this for the Stephen King Readathon, very similar setup, and it was a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys go join Book Astronomer Discord and come join the Battle of the Bands. Team Led Zeppelin for the win! And just a friendly reminder for all of these prompts, we are definitely allowing loose interpretation. So if you feel that your book honestly fits the prompt, go ahead and pick it. We're not going to be policing everybody like, oh, does this book, you know, completely fit the prompt? Like, we're not that strict. So if you think it does, we'll just allow it. I think that about covers it for, you know, the teams and the rules and the prompts and the point system. I'm sure Stacy's going to be in the comments if I forget anything to let y'all know what I forgot. And like I said, everything that you will need for the Readathon, the Battle of the Bands Readathon, is readily available on the Book Astronomer Discord. So like I said, if you're interested at all, come join the Discord and check it out for yourselves because it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, big thanks has to go out to Stacy, who really did the hard work for this. I basically came up with the idea and she helped me come up with all the prompts. She did all the graphics that look tremendous, as you're seeing right here. And I really couldn't have done this without her. And yeah, everybody go thank Stacy for making this possible. Leave down in the comments below what team you're going to choose for the Battle of the Bands. Which band will be victorious? Led Zeppelin. But if you want to, you can go join Kate's team for the Beatles, or Nico's team for AC/DC, or Ian for Team Queen. All wonderful, lovely people. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and go subscribe to my channel and to all of the people's channels that I mentioned in the video. Also the Discord where the Readathon will be happening. Go check that out. I also have my Patreon page and I have my Amazon wishlist. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a fantastic day. Bye.